7:30 is here, so I'd like to call to order this business meeting of October 17, 2017 of District 116. Roll call, please.
Member Carter.
Here.
Member Hall.
Here.
Member Patton.
Here.
Member Pulaski.
Here.
Member Fisher is here. Vice President Rollins-Gay and President Demmett.
Here. We have a quorum present. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications to this evening's agenda?
No, there are not.
Therefore, we need a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. There'll be no call for executive session this evening. Citizen statements. If any citizen wishes to address the board, our recording secretary is absent tonight, but the goldenrod sheets are available if anyone wishes to fill that in. Actually, seeing nobody here that's a member of the general public, I think we can recognize Joy Wright for running the cameras for us tonight so that people can watch us at home. And we can move ahead into no commendations and recognitions, but into administrative report, our audit this evening.
Carol, do you want to make any opening remarks?
Yes, Heather Powell and Brittany Walters are both here this evening to help present the audit report to the board. They were in your packets for your weekend reading, and also at your place you have some hard copies that they'll be going over tonight. And I think they're going to start with the wire-bound copy?
Yes, the one that's on the screen is the one we're going to start with.
Take it away, Heather.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to present the results of the audit this year. As Carol mentioned, I'm going to start with the spiral-bound document that kind of gives just a big picture overview. Then I'll make just a few comments on the actual bound financial statements and the management letter themselves, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has any questions. So I think everyone might be a little anxious to get through tonight, so I will try to speed this along. So this first slide here, and I'm sure for those of you that have seen this before, this is just kind of the 5-year trend of fund balance numbers. I do make sure to always tell you and remind you that these numbers are on the modified accrual basis, which is different than the cash basis, which maybe Carol's presented other things to you throughout the year that are on the cash basis. So they likely will look considerably different than what you're used to seeing. But the one thing I did want to point out is there was improvement in all of these fund balance numbers, with the exception of just a couple of funds that have some capital expenditures running through those. So overall, good improvement in those numbers for 2017. This next one is just the ed fund and expenditures as compared to budget. Overall, you had a favorable expenditures as compared to budget, about 1.3 million under budget. It really was across all categories, so nothing stuck out as being, one item that caused this difference. But it's always good to be under budget instead of over budget. So this next one is general and special revenue funds. So what that means is it's basically everything except capital projects funds and the debt service fund. These numbers always look kind of a little bit different from what you're used to seeing. Local sources especially is favorable by 3.5 million, and then federal sources is unfavorable by 600,000. Really what that means is we accrue anything you receive in real estate taxes 60 days after year end back into this fiscal year. So those numbers were quite a bit different from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. So for example, that 60-day accrual that came back into fiscal year 17 was almost $8 million, as compared to what came in last fiscal year is only like $4.6 million. So it's really just dependent on the timing of how much you get within that 60-day accrual, because that's how much we can bring back into this fiscal year. It's kind of a set cutoff for real estate taxes. So it's just kind of a timing thing of what you get and when you get it. Any questions on that? Then on the federal sources, the reason that was you did underspend some in Title I and Title II, and Carol did mention to me before the meeting that can be carried over to next year. So that's not something you're losing out on. That's just a timing thing as well, where you didn't spend as much in this fiscal year. It'll carry over, and you'll be able to spend it in future years.
So does that page include the education fund or not?
This, yes.
It's inclusive of
Yes, this
education.
is everything, basically everything except for capital projects and debt service.
All right, thank you.
And then this last one is just the working cash fund cash balance. And as you may remember me mentioning before, this is pretty much directly tied to the balance of interfund loans that you have outstanding, which were 4.99 this year, 4.69 this year, or last year, I'm sorry. So that's why that went down a little bit, loaned out a little bit more money to the other funds. So, any questions on these slides before I make a few comments on the other reports. One thing I want to mention, I don't present the annual financial report, which is a report that you're required to file with Illinois State Board of Education. It's just kind of a regulatory basis. They provide the form, we fill it all out. It essentially gives you the same information as this report I will talk about. But I did just want to mention that it gives a school profile score, and you are a recognition status, which is the highest that you can be on that score. Last year you were that same status, but 2 years ago you were 2 levels down. So just, wanted to mention that, thought it was worth mentioning, and that's always a good sign when you have that status. The other document, the big kind of bound report, I'm not going to go through it in detail, just a few things I wanted to mention. As you might remember, the audit is in accordance with government auditing standards, and we do issue an adverse opinion, but as most of you probably remember, that's just due to you not adopting GASB 34. We kind of cover that every year, so that was a decision that was made way back when, and that still stands today. There were really no new footnotes, with the exception of we did go ahead and include a subsequent event footnote for the bonds that were issued last week, I think, or maybe sometime after your fiscal year end. We thought it was significant enough to just go ahead and mention to the readers that those were done after year end, but prior to us dating this report. The other thing I wanted to just mention, you may or may not have noticed, but there's a required supplementary schedule that discloses some of the pension information, and it keeps growing and growing. That 3 years ago was when we first had to adopt that standard, so it has 3 years of information. That schedule will actually grow to be 10 years of comparative information as we keep adding on years since the standard. So if you wonder why that schedule just keeps getting more and more numbers, and eventually it'll have to be a landscape because it'll be too big, but that's required to be a 10-year presentation. So you just build it as you go until you get to the 10 years, and then a year will drop off after that. But that's just the pension information. There were no adjustments that we passed on, and all the adjustments that we made were related to the whole cash to accrual conversion. So there was really no adjustments that were what we would consider an error or anything that we had a comment on from a management letter standpoint. And then speaking of the management letter, there were no material weaknesses or deficiencies. We had no findings related to the single audit that we do over the federal funds. And there were no new deficiencies. So everything in this letter is something that we've already talked about in previous years. There were no new ones that we added. So I won't go through them again because we've talked about them before, but I just wanted to mention that there was nothing new that we found this year that we needed to report to you. So, any questions on all of that? I went through it kind of quickly, but really all in all, it was a pretty normal year from our standpoint. Nothing kind of jumped out or caused us any difficulties. Do you have anything to add that I missed? Okay.
Board members, any questions?
Carol, can you just remind us again about the different ISB statuses, the recognition status, as opposed to the status level we were at 2 years ago? Can you remind us what bumped us from that 2 levels down 2 years ago to today?
I can tell you it was probably the receipt of about $6.5 million in TIF 3 surplus monies that came in that bumped our
Okay.
fund balances up, and we're still holding on to that money and not spending it, so
That was last year,
that
right?
was July of 15.
So last fiscal
July
year.
1.
And it's really a designation of sort of financial health? I mean, I'm just, the general designations, what do they dictate, or what do they?
The ISBE has a set formula that they use. It's part of the AFR.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't have that with me, but it takes into account days cash on hand, how much you're bonding based on your debt capacity. It looks at your revenue to expense ratio. And there's probably one other, there's
Yeah, I
4
can't
different
remember
things
off
it
the
looks
top
at,
of
and
my
I'm not remembering the 4th one. But there are different categories, and
Okay.
you can go from financial recognition to financial watch, and down to financial, there's an early warning.
Review, warning, watch. Those
Yeah,
are the.
and then at the watch status, you have potentially the state coming in and having somebody help
Right.
you with your
Yeah,
finances, basically.
It takes all of those and kind of creates this numbering score, if you will. And I don't remember exactly what the cutoff is. You're at like a 3.7 or whatever now, which is recognition. But I think there's like X to X
Okay.
is this, X to,
Yeah.
so it creates that whole numbering score. But Carol does have extra
Gotcha.
copies of the AFR if you would
Okay,
like
no.
to see that and kind of what all goes into that. But
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
could, I
Thank
have
you.
information, I just don't have it with me, but I'd be happy to share it with
No,
you at a
no,
future
that's
board
fine.
meeting.
you told us about the various levels of status. I'd just forgotten what was taken into account to get us to where we're at today.
Which
So-
I, days cash on hand, I'm sure is where we
Mhm.
probably improved because of having that extra $6.5 million
From TIF.
in our account helps.
Yeah. Thank you.
Which we need to remind everybody we have to hold in escrow until.
Right,
Yeah.
It's not ours to spend.
right.
Until the,
It's tied up.
Right,
uh,
and that is
where the
disclosed in
hospital's
here
from.
as well. I didn't mention it because it was the same disclosure it was
I-
last year.
I'm bringing it up for the folks at home.
Oh, sure, yeah,
Yeah.
that is, but it is disclosed as well.
Yeah, it helps improve our fund balances, and it makes us look better when we're compared to other districts, but it's unusual because that's money that we don't have. We don't know if we're going to have it forever, if we may have to pay it back, if we happen to get a, you know, if court cases are one and we end up having to pay that money back.
Anything
Any other
else?
questions?
I assume, I noticed that the report this year, in the documents that you sent to us to review, it included an audit report on the adult ed and family literacy grant, state grant. I mean, you know, the auditor's report on that state grant. And I don't remember ever having an audit report on state grants before. Maybe, I mean, at least as a separate report.
It isn't for us, they've never done one for us. For some
Oh.
reason, the adult ed, that grant specifically required a separate
okay.
audit, so they, for several years now, have had
Yeah,
to.
Oh,
we have
okay.
had that for that adult ed one for several years
So
now.
that's unique to that grant.
Yeah.
That's why we haven't seen it for others. It's
Yes.
just what they require.
Yes,
Okay.
it is a requirement of the Illinois Community College Board.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay, remind the board our proper procedure at this point in time is just to receive the audit.
Yep.
We no longer have to approve it. Long time ago, we used to have to approve it, but now we receive it because we're not
file
going
it.
to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
It's been
file it
filed.
with the regional office and with ISBE, so, and with the audit clearinghouse, we have to send it off to all the places we send it off to every
Yeah,
year.
just reminding people it's not an action item, it's just a report that we receive.
Thanks, Heather.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. We have no communications or
We have one
policy.
communication.
Oh, we do.
Yeah. I'll just, I put this at the board's spots. This arrived in the mail this week, and I want to make sure everyone had a copy. The 94th Annual Dinner of the Half Century Club, which is a local club that meets annually, once a year, to celebrate contributions of long-term residents of the Champaign-Urbana area. And this year, they are meeting at Urbana High School on November 1st from 5:30, which is social time, to a buffet dinner provided by Piatto's at 6 p.m. One of our UHS a cappella ensembles will be performing. The program will consist of Seamus Riley. Yeah.
Says listening. Yeah, Meg Riley.
Seamus Riley from Parkland College giving a presentation on Parkland College celebrating 50 years of success. And this year they are honoring Judge Harry Clem and his wife Judy, as well as Urbana School Board member and one of the founding members of the Champaign-Urbana Schools Foundation Board, Anna Merritt, and as distinguished residents of the community. So the executive board of the Half Century Club wanted to make sure that all board members know that this invitation is extended to you. The dinner costs $33 a person, checks payable to the Half Century Club. You have to RSVP by Wednesday, October 25th, which is next Wednesday. And that's it.
Those events are a lot of fun. Encourage people to show. All right. We do not have any policy reviews this evening. We do have a consent agenda, and on the consent agenda is the business meeting minutes of September 19th, the study session minutes of October 3rd, October bills and checks in the following amounts: education fund bills, $954,000; operations and maintenance fund bills, $151,000; transportation fund bills, only $1,700. It's the beginning of the year. Working cash, $39,000. School facility occupation tax, the sales tax, $389,000. Tort, $23,000. Life safety, $20,000. Payroll of $3.9 million, and adult education fund bills of $75,000. No interfund loans. Various personnel items which have been distributed to us. Approval of the hazardous areas for transportation, and this is consistent with the same hazardous areas of last decade or so. Resolution authorizing and directing the sale and disposal of personal property, which has to do with weeding out some books out of our Leal and Wiley libraries, and the renewal of our MTD contract for just a small increase that is driven by our increase in enrollment primarily. Any desire to remove any item from the consent agenda? If not, a motion to approve the consent agenda would be
I just
in
have a question about the MTD contract. It doesn't influence my vote, but I just want a clarification on something.
Sure, let's get a motion on the floor first to approve the consent agenda.
So moved?
Moved and seconded. Peggy?
Yeah.
Question?
Carol, I mean, I noticed in the correspondence you sent to us about the renewal of the MTD contract, you mentioned that the costs are claimed on an annual basis, like our others, and this is for the UMS and UHS MTD, but they're only partially reimbursed by the state. And I just wanted to clarify, they're partially reimbursed by the state, not because we aren't entitled to full funding, but because the state is only partially reimbursing all our transportation
It's no
costs.
different than yellow bus service. We are only reimbursed
Okay.
partially for that,
Okay.
so depending on the state reimbursement level, and
And is that like about,
it has
pers-
been, they've been prorating for the last several years, so you get 70% of 80%, so it's
Oh, my
it's
goodness.
it's
Okay.
been a smaller amount. This year, we're hoping that may be higher.
Okay.
The claims are in. We haven't yet heard exactly what the proration level is going to be, but they're saying it's supposed to be at 100%. So
Oh.
we'll see.
okay.
But we haven't received any funding yet, so that's yet to come.
Right.
But no, MTD is no different than any
From the
of
first
our
student.
other bus
Gotcha.
costs as far as
Thank you.
reimbursement.
All right, ready for roll call?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Member Carter?
Yes.
Member Hall?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Rollins Gay?
Yes.
President Demmett?
Yes, motion is carried. We have also individual action items this evening. The first of these is the gifts. Roger and Teresa Adams of Rantoul donated a variety of office supplies to the early childhood school at the value of $150. Christine Sherrick donated approximately at 150 Beanie Babies, valued at $1,200 to the Urbana Early Childhood School. Nicole Osby of Urbana donated a Rifton supine stander and Hoyer lift to assist students with physical disabilities at the middle school, donation valued at $3,000. And Kay Warfel of Tolono donated a Singer featherweight sewing machine to Urbana Middle School Splash Program, valued at $800. Bill Harmon of Urbana donated $999.99 to purchase materials for the third grade fashion show at Dr. Preston Williams School. And Sanjay Pantel and Aman Ulalak, I messed up that word, I'm sure, of Urbana donated a 36-inch Samsung flat-screen TV valued at $300 to Leal Elementary School for one of their conference rooms. And Graham and Kathleen Evans of Urbana donated $300 for the purchase of Spanish language titles for the 5th grade dual language class of Gabriela Romero. And do we know which school that's at?
I believe that is Dr. Williams. I will have
Williams
to double
School.
check.
All right.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve and is there a motion to receive the gifts and send thank you notes?
Yes. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. We have no call for a future special executive meeting at this point in time. We have a superintendent report.
Yeah, I just have a few things tonight. Celebrations of a couple of our alumni. This Friday from 6 to 9 p.m., the Champaign County NAACP is holding their annual Freedom Fund banquet. And one of the awardees, Tori Exum, is an Urbana High School graduate. She's receiving the President's Award. Urbana School District traditionally sponsors a table, and so we will be well represented there. If any board members would like to attend, please let me know, and I can make sure that we have a spot for you. In addition, next week on, I believe it's Thursday, 10/26, we have another Urbana alumni, Brandon McFarland, who is being recognized for a special honor from the the African American History Museum of Springfield and Central Illinois. And he's one of several awardees who are receiving an Early African American Pioneers of Central Illinois Award. And again, we're helping sponsor that in recognition of an alumni who is receiving an award. In addition, since I'm speaking of alumni, I'd also like to point out that the Champaign-Urbana Schools Foundation Distinguished Alumni nominations are open, and you can go to the Champaign-Urbana Schools Foundation website if you know of an alumni who should receive special recognition, and that is open, I believe, until sometime in December. I'll double check on that for sure. And then the last thing is we have two different groups, one at the middle school and one at the high school, student groups that are they're collecting items for the relief effort in Puerto Rico. And they're collecting a variety of items. It's on our website, it's on the middle school website, and those collections can be dropped off at either the middle school or the high school main office or here at central office. And it's a variety of things like canned goods, dried products, clothing. Again, the full list is on our website, and I believe that there's actually a collection bin right outside the door here. So if you're interested, you can drop those things off. The deadline is this Friday by the end of the school day. And that's it for the superintendent's report tonight.
FOIA.
Sorry. Had two FOIA requests that we fulfilled. One was from Scott Reader Reporting, and that was public records that pertain to the settlement agreement made on behalf of Eric Louis Harold, a former student at University High School in District 116. There was nothing to report because there was some misunderstanding about the relationship between University Laboratory School and the school district. And then the other one is the Parents Foundation of Illinois. Tom Schultz requested a variety of basically directory information on every teacher and staff member who is currently employed in Urbana School District 116. And they were both completed. Oh, Carol. Sorry, I forgot something on my superintendent's report, and that is we just wanted to update the board on the sale of bonds.
Yes, because Paul had asked the
Yes.
question about the rates. We did sell the bonds on October 5th and wanted to report that the rates came in very favorable. I think it helped that we did have a state budget in place. The tax exempt issue was at about 2.73%, and the taxable issue was about 3.11. And I asked them, how does this compare, to other districts that were selling about the same time, because they said that they seemed to think that we got a better rate than some other districts that were actually rated a notch higher than Urbana, which I thought was odd. But they said it all depends on the tone of the market the day we're selling, and I think compared to other districts, we were basically 63 basis points below the spread for two other districts that sold that were actually rated higher than us. So good news, I think, overall, as far as the rates that we got. And I'll be coming back to the board with a reimbursement resolution, because if you might recall, we've been spending money from our sales tax fund, and now that we have the bonds, we'll go and reimburse our sales tax funds for that. So I'll be coming back with the board resolution, probably one of the next two board meetings. So, thank you.
All right. That it? Board reports. Any board reports this evening?
I just wanted to mention that Carol and I are going to go to the presentation normal tomorrow on the new school funding formula. Hopefully we'll learn something. No.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We look forward to hearing your report at the next board meeting.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be some substance to it.
I just wanted to say to the board members, take a look at the resolutions that are at your place. There are some in there that are relatively new. If you have any questions or anything, contact me. We can talk about it. So I'll have an idea on how we feel we should vote.
Thank you.
Yes. Academic monogram night is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Right? 7? I got the time right? 7?
Yes, it is 7 p.m.
Yes.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, try to be there 6:30.
Oh, I missed
Yes,
that.
high school auditorium. Or Jim?
6:45 would be plenty of
Jim.
room.
Yeah, no, the gym, I thought it was the gym.
It's Oscar Adams Gym.
It's in the
Okay,
gym.
Okay. All right. You guys are making me crazy.
Again, the parent? Yes.
The parent will be there, huh?
The parent will be there.
The superintendent might come along with the parent.
Thank you.
All right, any other board reports this evening? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Those opposed, same sign motion. We are adjourned.